You guys are too mean to the minions. Say sorry. Say sorry now. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Whether or not you like the minions, you can't deny the impact that these little creatures have. Today, I want to invite you guys into thinking about them more deeply, and I also want to share why the minions are refreshing characters, at least to me, in this day and age. Before we start, I just want to say that this video contains a collaboration between me and the Collagen Co. Get 10% off your purchase using my code TCornelia10. More about this collaboration at the end of this video. Part 1. The Silent Stars of the Modern Age. The Minions first appeared in the 2010 animated movie Despicable Me. First introduced as the minions of the main character Gru, the minions were no doubt the breakout stars of the movie. They were funny, they were cute, their humor is slapstick and incredibly universal because they don't speak a specific language. Clearly, producers and businessmen noticed the popularity of the minions. Soon enough, they were everywhere, on merchandise, on advertisement. They're even the mascot of the Illumination Company, which is the animation studio and the production company behind these movies and other movies as well. Eventually, the minions got more and more screen time, and they even have their own spin-offs because naturally that's what happens when you have breakthrough characters. Between the overexposure and the fact that a lot of older people use the minions for their cringe memes, and how, like, yes, I have to admit, some of the potty humor that the minions use, they're not fun, they're just childish. This results in a lot of haters emerging for the minions. I have to be honest, I do like the minions in the beginning, but eventually the overexposure really does put me off of them, and it's only until the release of Minions and Monsters that I'm kind of back into the minions. If this is what happened to you, don't worry, the people in Illumination actually noticed this.
The audience that first grew up with them, by the time those kids were in high school, they actually started to pull away from us a bit. When that same group that had grown up with them got into their 20s, they came rushing back through nostalgia.
That's how I was.
Minions and Monsters made everything click for me. I seem to have underestimated the minions and their genius because the minions are actually the modern equivalent of silent movie stars. Minions and Monsters is the third Minions movie. Released recently in 2022, it follows another tribe of minions who got themselves embroiled in the world of Hollywood. This tribe of minions become silent movie stars, but as sound becomes more incorporated into movies and dialogue can be recorded, the minions are pushed out of the world because they can't speak English. They actually really struggle to speak English. I think they understand English, but they just physically cannot speak the language. Their fame fades, people don't like them anymore. So they decide, you know what, let's find another new big boss. Let's just return to our original mission. However, one minion, named James, is determined to make a monster movie. Something so grand and massive that people in Hollywood would take notice of the minions and welcome them back into this world. This movie is somewhat significant because it marked the return of Pierre Coffin, one of the creators of the Minions, who also voiced all of the Minions, who previously directed some of the Despicable Me and Minions movies. He stepped back because he felt like he told enough stories with the characters. However, when the Illumination producer, founder, and CEO Chris Meledandri pitched the idea to Pierre Coffin about the Minions making a monster movie, Coffin is more interested in like the movie making aspect of the story, and because of that, he decided to set the movie during the old Hollywood era because of his love for older movies. This movie is like tailor-made for me because I love old movies. If you follow my letterboxd, which you should, you would notice that I watch a lot of old movies, and I also love animation, and I also love like cute little things. Yeah, this movie is definitely for me. But something about this movie just felt different. I felt more passion behind it, and I think it's because I noticed Pierre Coffin put a lot into this movie because you can sense his love for movies and movie making in general. The biggest thing I want to emphasize is that this film pretty much hammers home the idea that the minions are the closest thing that we have to silent movie stars in this day and age. Their stardom or popularity comes from their physical comedy. And let's be real as well, they're not as problematic as some of the old Hollywood stars. I'm just saying. Honestly, I know it's very easy to write off these characters because they resort to poop jokes and fart jokes or physical comedy where they beat each other up, but I also feel this is redundant to the other physical comedy feats that they do in their movies. I would like us to rewind and take us back to 16th and 18th century Europe, where a lot of people are fans of this theater genre called commedia dell'arte. Commedia dell'arte usually feature characters speaking in gibberish and relying on physical comedy to present their stories. Sound familiar? But how can you understand the story when the characters speak gibberish and mime the stories? This is where the stock characters come in. Commedia dell'arte stories use stock characters that are familiar to its audience. While the characters sometimes are one-dimensional, they still do their job of entertaining the people and telegraphing just enough information to get the story points across. These stock characters are characters with common tropes, and you'd be surprised at how many commedia dell'arte stock character archetypes are still being used in modern comedy. They have been around so long that it is more than likely any character from a comedy you can think of right now, they are probably inspired by commedia dell'arte characters. This is no different for the Minions. The Minions as a whole are pretty much the Sani character, which is the most popular of commedia dell'arte characters. This character was drawn from the lower classes of the time, the peasants or migrant worker who worked in Venetian society as a servant, valet, or porter, sometimes also as an odd job person or hawker. Zani was always highly animated, waving arms and gesticulating with hands when speaking in coarse manner with erratic body movements thrown in. Some Zani characters were known for their acrobatic feats, including handstands and flips. Others displayed their roots and were constantly ravenously hungry, coming from a famine in their hometowns, but their coarseness also introduced mirth into the theater with farting, burping, and resounding snoring. However, if we're to look closer, some of the Minions embody other commedia dell'arte characters too. For example, Stuart can be considered the Arlecchino or Harley Quinn. His absent-mindedness is legendary, and he can be looking for the chair he is sitting on or completely sidetracked by a pretty lady, money, or food. Or in the new Minions and Monsters movie, Dick is Il Capitano or the Captain. Il Capitano's character in commedia dell'arte is usually a vainglorious, deceitful, and braggart soldier. His part usually involves him boasting of great exploits of war, but he is also the subject of pranks and jokes from the other characters. It should be noted as well that a lot of commedia dell'arte characters are identified from visual cues, like from their posture or, more importantly, their mask, which are unique to each character. Like commedia dell'arte characters, the Minions are incredibly visual. Their comedy only works if you are watching them and not just listening to them. And one of the ways you can tell them apart is to pay close attention to their different physical characteristics, like their height, how many eyes they have, their eye colors, their hair, their size, the proportion from their eyes to the mouth. You know, like how Kevin has like a longer face than Bob? I won't deny that sometimes they do lowbrow humor, but I take for granted the amount of visual and animation that goes into the creation of these characters. You can definitely dismiss the Minions for being silly, but the animators did the best they could to make them visually compelling, even if their sense of humor doesn't work for you. Because of this reflection, I come to think about how the Minions remind me of silent movie stars, of pantomime, or even modern actors like Rowan Atkinson, who is popular for Mr. Bean, another very physical character who speaks very little and mostly mumbles gibberish. These performers rely on their physicality to get the story across. The story and visuals wouldn't make sense if you don't pay attention to the screen, and I really like this. And this is incredibly refreshing for me. Why? Part 2. A case against the second screen. It is undeniable that we live in an era where second screen viewing is the norm. Second screen viewing is this new practice where TV shows or films are made to be viewed on a second screen. Ralph Jones for The Guardian describes this as, if a viewer's primary screen is their phone, they shouldn't be so challenged by the Netflix show on their secondary screen that they switch off the show. Above all else goes the cynical view. Netflix just wants you to have its visual music playing for as long as possible. Nothing to add from us on this one, but thanks for reaching out, says Netflix's PR when Jones contacted them. Because of this practice, sometimes dialogues in shows and films are stilted. The goal is that the audience should still be able to follow the story by just listening to the audio while they still scroll on their phone. As a result, sometimes the dialogue, for lack of better word, is dumbed down so it can easily be processed when people do other things than watch the show or film. This practice is different than older network television shows where they air episodes week to week and they have 20 plus episodes per season. Sometimes in these shows, they recap events that happened in previous episodes with the intention of catching up viewers who missed last week's or other week's episodes. Those in the universe recap might sound like exposition, but the viewing practice was different back then. You weren't really binge watching the show, so sometimes you do need to be caught up on what happened. But second screen viewing is more egregious because sometimes the dialogue is literally describing what is happening on screen. Some might argue second screen viewing is reminiscent of soap operas, where historically soap operas were radio shows or plays that are meant to be played in the background to keep housewives company as they do their chores. However, I argue that soap opera is not comparable to second screen viewing because soap operas started off as radio shows and the practice just carried through because of that format. But my point is, second screen viewing dialogue is really awkward and on the nose. It's very info dumpy. As a result, I also feel like it can contribute to the lack of media literacy these days because we need to have things spelled out to us instead of us having to observe like the subtlety of the visuals or the subtext or nuances of the dialogue. We need to also be aware that Netflix and streaming services do this because they want to keep you on the app, playing anything of theirs on screen. It doesn't matter what, as long as you're playing something from their app. It doesn't matter if you're on your phone scrolling through TikTok, you can still understand what the show or film is about through listening only to the audio, so you don't need to switch off the app. The way these streaming platforms want to keep you on their app is also why streaming platforms have the autoplay function, so it plays the next episode or film before you can click away. It's also why they greenlight so many reality shows because they're quick and cheap to make, so they can make these shows in large volumes. The more things they have on their database, the more likelier you are to stay too. Like if they only have like a small amount of shows and then you already went through the shows, what next? You're gonna click off. But if they have more things, you can watch more things. This is why the Minions are refreshing to me. Instead of relying on the audio or the dialogue, the visuals and the physicality of the Minions are the key to enjoying their stories. Yes, the language is funny, I enjoy the Minions, but if you watch the Minions, it is more engaging. Sometimes you need the body language of the Minions to understand what they are saying through their gibberish too. The way that the Minions place emphasis on both the audio and the visual, it makes them pretty good entertainers. It's just nice to watch characters and films that demand your full attention, both through you listening and watching them. It reminds me of Mr. Bean or the projects by Artman, where the audio-visual elements work together to create an effectively funny story. This is a testament to the amazing work of the team who animated the Minions, because they put in so much work into making these funny-looking yellow pills entertaining. Conclusion. I'm not saying that the Minions are without its flaws. The reliance on poop and fart jokes and slapstick and just them like hurting each other and showing butts, those jokes are sometimes not fun. Sometimes they get like, that's a bit childish. And I do think that sometimes the Minions and the Despicable Me movies are shallow. And the thing is, I feel like there are so many things that we can mine with the Minions. Like, what does it mean that they need to serve a big boss? Is it their biggest purpose? What happens if they break free of that purpose? Does James, with his interest in filmmaking and him rejecting the call to find a big boss, means he is breaking away from this programming? Is there meaning that James's interest in art is what caused him to break away from wanting to find a big boss? Or is filmmaking James's new big boss? What happens when Gru and his family grow old and die? What will the Minions do since they are immortal? Does that mean they will continue serving Gru's descendants? There are interesting questions that they can answer, but the question is, does Illumination want to get into it? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't work there. And to be honest as well, like just between you and me, I do like the Minions, but personally, if people want stories with silent characters who get into hijinks, I would probably recommend like Artman projects. Wallace and Gromit. I love Wallace and Gromit, but I also don't want to dismiss the Minions. My thoughts are pretty much surmised by this review of Minions and Monsters from Clint Worthington. For RogerEbert.com, Worthington wrote, Minions and Monsters feels like a fun interrogating the Minions in the annals of film history. Stripped of the Jeez! There's so many big words here! Stripped of the Stripped of the needle drops of previous entries and the stifling presence of Gru, who always felt like a millstone around the Minions' necks. He argues, and here successfully, that the Minions aren't a Scrooge! That the Minions aren't a scourge of the universal laws of attention span and cultural sophistication. Rather, these little guys are simply the purest and latest distillation of the very impulses that have made cinema one of mankind's most enduring art forms. Characters in motion, working hard to entertain, distract, and provide a communal experience for those who enjoy them. I think that's a good description of the Minions. But what do you guys think? Have you watched Minions and Monsters? Do you like the Minions? What are your favorite animated films? Talk to me! If you like this video, please like it, comment on it, and share it. And consider subscribing for more commentaries and video essays and random chats about pop culture and stuff adjacent to pop culture. Thank you for watching this video and for making me part of your day. And thank you to College & Co for gifting me a nice package as well. As you guys know, I was hit by a car car around this time last year. But since then, I've been trying to work out more based on the recommendation of my physiotherapist because he low-key, well, not low-key, he called me weak. So I've been running, doing weights, and doing dance cardios. And apart from that, I'm also studying stage acting where we have to do a lot of physical work. So it's very important for me to stay hydrated and energized, which is where Hydro Glow comes in handy. But not only that, Hydro Glow also helps with digestion, and there's also aesthetic benefits. It's very easy to make this drink. Grab a sachet. This one is strawberry watermelon and some cool water. That's about like 500 to 700 milliliters. Put those two things in a bottle or a glass. Then depending on whether or not you are James Bond, either shake or stir your Hydro Glow. And it tastes really delicious. If you are interested and want to try this out, use my code TCornelia10 for 10% off on your order. By the way, the bottle, oh, how aesthetic. I can make like fruit infused water. There's a strainer. And with that, I bid you guys adieu. Have a good night, day, dusk, dawn, afternoon, evening, middle of the night, twilight, sunrise, sunset, all the time in the world, whatever time it is for you guys. My physiotherapist loves using like, what's the name? He was like, your goal for the summer solstice is to hit this much. And then this is your next goal for the equinox. I don't know what those things are called. Is that like the lunar cycle? No, it's not the lunar cycle. Well, stay healthy and stay hydrated as well. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.